Hey Stampers, this is Kathy Hansen, and tonight I'm bringing you a video showing you how we assembled these cards at my Women's Connection class on May 6th. I hope you enjoy them. There are a couple of fun folds in here, and then one that is just fun. It's just a fun card, and it has a nice thought on it. So let's start with that one. The easy one first this time. When I'm doing a class, I sometimes like to do the easiest one last because that way after I've made everybody work really hard, they get a chance to relax and make something very easy. So this is just a fun stamp from Stampin' Up, and on the inside it just has place for a note. And I took the stamp, I reduced the size of it on my copier, and I cut out just the cup and the glasses from the front of the card to put on the inside. So I thought that was kind of fun. So let's start. I do a lot of cheating with my brother's stamp and cut, scan and cut, and that's what I did with this one. Rather than stamping all of these, I actually cheated a little bit. I stamped one and copied it, and then I cut it out with my scan and cut. But for this card, all I did was cut a piece of cardstock, and you can use any colors. It's not important what colors I used for this, but I took a piece of cardstock and I cut it at 5 1/4 by 4 inches to put on the inside of the card. And this is just a mat for the piece of cardstock that we're going to use to write a note on. So that just goes in here like so. And then we have this white piece that goes over it for note writing. And it just fits centered on that card, on over the cardstock. Well, it would be centered if I could get it in the right place. Here we go. Yeah, that looks fairly decent. And then these two little pieces, what I did with my scan and cut is if you have one, you'll know what I'm talking about here. I set it at 0.04 to cut just a tiny little border around the image, and then I bumped it up to 0.08 to make a mat for it. So we're just going to attach that little piece to the mat. And when I'm putting something on the inside, I don't necessarily like to pop it up at all because I don't like dimension on the inside of a card. It just adds too much. You can't close the card properly. And then I just went ahead and glued this kind of down at the bottom here in the corner. It made sense to me to put it in this corner. So that's what I did. And that's the entire inside. Then on the front, what I did, I'm going to open this out so it's a little easier to work with. I have that same size. This again is just the 5 1/4 by 4 inch cardstock. The white cardstock for the inside, by the way, was 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches. So just 1/4 of an inch smaller all the way around. Okay, so this one again is 5 1/4 by 4. Then I have this fun card, this fun patterned paper, and I honestly don't know the name of it. It was something that I pulled out of my stash, and I may have gotten it at a local thrift store for crafters. I find paper wherever I can find it for my classes because it's just fun. Okay, so that just fits on there like that. And again, I did the same thing with this piece. I cut it with my scan and cut at 0.04 at a setting of 0.04 for the little border around the outer edge. And then I just took a piece of cardstock and put it in there and bumped up that border a little bit to 0.08. so that I could have kind of a frame for it. So I'm just going to attach this piece to this mat. And then I did pop this one up on the front just to give it a little bit more dimension. And then all you're going to have left to do after this, oh, where did I put my scissors? Oh no. Can't go forward without scissors. Okay, here we go. I'm going to cut some pieces of this foam tape to put on the back. And I'm not going to cut a lot of pieces. I think that it'll do just fine with 3 pieces here to hold it. Okay, then all I have to do is remove the backing and center it on the front. Now you can color this if you want. You can see that I did color my sample, but if you want to leave it just black and white, if you like that look, you can do that too. I actually used alcohol inks to color these, and it worked out pretty well. So here I am just centering this on the front. And that card is finished unless you decide to color it. And when I started coloring, I had no idea what colors I was going to use. I just kind of pulled out colors as I went. Only thing I knew from the start was that I wanted to have red glasses because it just needed to be. So that's that card. Then we're going to move on to this fun little card. This card opens up this way, and then it's got a little flap. And you can just write a little message on the inside of it. And then to close it, we're just going to close it. You can actually stand this card up because that flower on the front panel, or the inside panel, is popped up just a little bit. So you can kind of catch it on that flower and stand it up if you want to have it sitting on your desk where you can see it. A little hello there. This is pretty easy to assemble as well. All the pieces parts are right here. And to do this front piece, I actually lined up this piece before I cut the circle out. And I cut the 2 thicknesses out with my circle die on my Big Shot so that it lines up like that. If you wanted to use the other side, I know the other side is kind of cute too. I didn't necessarily get it perfectly centered. This one's not bad though. This one actually looks pretty good. So you could put it either way, whichever side you like best. I'm going to go ahead and stick with this side for this card. So what I did first is I'm going to get a little piece of scratch paper out here. Well, I had one. Just because I don't necessarily want to get ink on my mat here. So I'm going to use, the cardstock that I'm using is Gorgeous Grape. So I'm going to use Gorgeous Grape ink, I think. And I'm going to stamp just a few sprinkles on the front. I don't have them on my sample, but I decided to put them on at this point because I just think it can use a little bit more than what's there. Sometimes more is just more, but in this case I think it will make the card look a little better if we put a few sprinkles here and there. So that's what I'm doing, is just stamping a few little darker spritzes of color So that's all I'm doing on the front, and then I'm going to attach that to the front of the card. Okay. So that should line up pretty well. Yep, there we go. Not bad. Then I'm going to use my liquid glue, and I'm just going to put a little ring all the way around the edge here, just right at the edge, because I have a very narrow little border that I'm going to put around that big hole in the front of the card. And I made that border by using a scallop circle and just a regular circle die, and where did my circle go? I know it was here a minute ago. Oh, I've lost my circle. Oh no. My glue will probably dry up before I find it. Whatever shall I do? You know, I really thought that I was prepared to start this video, and it appears that I wasn't prepared at all. Okay. I'm not finding that little circle, but here's what it's going to look like when I do find it. So I'm going to set this aside, and I may need to re-glue it. Oh, here, I found it. Ooh, wow, great. Okay, I found all my other little pieces parts. They apparently fell out of the envelope. I think this is still wet enough that I can just go ahead and put that right over the edge. And then that just kind of gives it a little finished touch to that front part. Okay, so then for the inside piece, I can put this away. Well, maybe I'll stamp this piece too, as long as I have it out. This is going to go on the flap that's going to be on the inside. So we'll put just a few little sprinkles of color here too, the darker color. And then close up my stamp pad so it doesn't dry out. And this piece, what I've done with this is a piece of cardstock that is 9 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And I've scored it at, let's see, I've scored it at 4 inches. Yep, that's right. And at, oh, I'm sorry, it's an 8-inch piece of cardstock. It's 8 inches in width. It's 5 1/4 inches tall. I've scored it at 4 inches and 6 inches. This is a valley fold. This is a mountain fold. And what I'm going to do is on that last fold right here, I'm going to attach this piece of cardstock, which is 1 3/4 inches by 5 inches. And that's going to sit about 1/8 of an inch away from each edge. Okay, so now this is a little tricky. It's not necessarily intuitive how you would put that inside the card. So you're going to actually fold it this way so that the fold is on this side. You're going to put adhesive on the back. And then we're going to put it inside of the other card. Again, the fold is on the outer edge. The open edge is facing this fold on the inside. And we're just going to line that up and center it inside the card. Okay, so now when you fold that back and you close the card, you're going to see something like this. We're going to fill in that gap. And we're going to do it with this piece right here. Before I put it in there, I decided I wanted to color in a little bit of the flower and a little bit of the leaves on the outside. So I took my marker and I just added a little yellow on the inside of the flower, just to give it a little bit more pizzazz than just purple and white. Then I took my green marker and I very roughly, I had stamped these leaves on here, these partial leaves, and I don't want this to be real fancy. I just want it to look like it's kind of, it's not really a watercolor look, but it's, if you can see this design, this is a stamp, the purple part is a stamp, and then the outline stamp is another stamp that I stamped over it. And if you look at it closely, you'll see that it is not lining up. It's the purple part just covers part of the area. So that's kind of what I'm trying to achieve on these leaves as well. Just kind of have a touch of color in there just to give it a little color. Then I'm going to take my little purple ink that I used and I'm just going to add a few little flecks. And I'm not going to re-ink it. I'm just puffing on it a little and putting a few flecks in there. Okay, then I'm going to take another piece of foam tape. I'm just going to cut a couple of small pieces of foam tape here. And I'm going to put those on the inside of the flower, and I just want to have enough so that it holds it in place. I don't want to glue the whole thing down because I want those outer edges to be free so that they can catch on that circle when you open it. Oh, and the backing's not coming off. There we go. Of course, I'm going to have little backing pieces now kind of flying all around because they are so staticky. See? Staticky. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of put that a little bit to the side. Okay, then all I need to do, and you can see there are just a few little, maybe I'll put one here too, little huffing, and another little dot right there. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add adhesive, and I think I'm going to use my regular tape for this. Right here inside this window, I do not want adhesive on this white part. I want it only on the flap, which is this purple part. So I'm putting some adhesive in there, quite a bit of it actually, because I don't want this to come apart. And then I'm just going to match this up with this hole in the front of my card. And then when you open it, you have this flower. Okay, my original card said hello there, but I decided I want to make this one a thank you card. So I'm going to put my thanks onto the larger scalloped oval. And I'm going to put foam tape on the back of that too because I want to pop it up just a little bit. I think one piece in the, well, yeah, probably one piece in the center is going to be enough to hold it just fine. And then I'm just going to line that up down here. You know what, I think that could use some little speckles too. And I still have a little ink on here, so these will be very light background speckles. Oh, and I stuck it to my paper. That was pretty clever, wasn't it? This is not a good night for this. I make a lot of mistakes, but not necessarily this many. You know what? I have some Suquang tape in here. And I'm just going to put that on the back. Right here in my drawer. And I'm just going to put some of that on the back of that foam tape because that foam tape actually has some paper on it now. And I'm pretty sure that this is going to make it stick. So my little foam tape is going to be glued on with my score tape. And that should work just fine. Yep, there we go. Thanks. And the card is finished. So that's just kind of a fun card. Two different versions of the same card with dots, without dots. And I actually have another sample showing how I made it with the other side of the paper right here. And this one also has some dots on it, just to give it a little bit of contrast color. So here's even a third version of it using the lighter side of the designer paper. And then it opens the same way. Okay, so let's put that one aside. And we have, this is the one that's really going to be fun. This is the graduation card. I had alternate versions of it as birthday cards because not everybody needs a graduation card. So when I did the class, I gave people the option of doing either a birthday card or the graduation card. So this is the front. You can kind of almost not, oh there, if I put it that way, you can kind of see the edge of it. That may need to have a little silver, maybe a little bit of a silver line on there just to make it show up a little better. In real life, it does show up better. Okay, and then it opens from the bottom, and it opens into this wonderful big card with, you can see all those silver stars in there. I just love this. So that says, "Congrats, grad." Okay, this is just a very simple origami fold, and I'm going to show you how that's made. And then my alternate version was a happy birthday card. And for the happy birthday card, on this version, I had a few balloons, but when it came to class time, I could not find my balloon stamps to save my life. So instead, I had some silver balloons that I punched out with my balloon punch. And I'll show you that here in a minute. Okay, so let's set those aside, and I'll show you how this is made. The first thing I want to show you actually is how I scored that paper for the inside. That the card itself is 4 inches by, I'm sorry, 4 1/4 inches by 4 1/4 inches. And to make the piece fit on the inside, it needed to be 4 by 4 inches. So I cut a piece of paper 8 inches by 8 inches. And then I scored it. This is just a very common origami fold. If you do origami, this is a basic fold that starts just about anything you ever want to make with origami. And looking for my scoring tool. Here it is, my stylus. Okay, so I'm first going to score it at 4 inches. And then I'm going to score it. I've turned it one turn to the side, and I'm going to score it at 4 inches. Now, if you have the old this is the Stampin' Up! Scoring tool, and it had at one time a diagonal plate that you could buy to fit right into it. And if you have that, it makes it very simple to do that diagonal one. And so what I did is I flipped it over to the other side. So this is on the back side, and I just scored that right down the center. So like this. It's not as easy going diagonally. Okay, so then what you have, if you don't have this diagonal, board, there is another easy way to do it, and that is just turn it sideways, find a mark, and actually, you can't see the bottom of my scoring board, but what I did down here at the bottom is I made a black line so I would know where to line it up at the bottom. So at the top it's at 6 inches, at the bottom it's at 6 inches, and then I was able to just score right down that line. Okay, so that's how you do it if you don't have the diagonal plate. Oh, my witches are moving. I am so fond of the Disney villains, and so I had to stick my thing on there. Unfortunately, this will not be on my blog. I'm just doing the video for this one, so it really doesn't matter. But if you do want to visit my blog, it's kathyscraftroom.blogspot.com, and there are lots and lots and lots of other cards on there that you can see. Okay, so then once you do that, you're going to fold away from the score lines. And well, let me get my bone folder because I like to make those nice crisp creases. Okay, so fold one, then you're going to fold the other one the same way in half. Then you're going to flip it over and you're going to fold it on the diagonal fold line. And then as you start to fold it together, you will see, you can actually just poke the center of it and you'll see that it will just automatically come together the way it's supposed to be. I'm going to show you that one more time. I scored on this side. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I scored on this side these two lines at 4 inches. Then I flipped it over and I scored diagonally. Then I folded back on that line and flipped it over and poked it in the middle, and you can see it's coming together already as soon as you do that. I always like to take my scoring tool and go ahead and make those nice crisp creases again. But basically that is the operating part of this card. So let's go to the kit and I'll show you how I assembled it. This is going to be the graduation card that we're going to make. And you can see there's, first of all, this is a 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch piece of cardstock. Then here is our piece of cardstock that we've folded. And inside of that I've got some other pieces, and I've done a little stamping so that we've got up here, we've got our graduation hats, down here we have our congrats grad, and then I've got some triangular pieces. And those pieces, we may as well assemble this as long as we're here. These pieces I cut from squares. The squares that I cut were 3 3/4 inches. And then when I open up that square, those pieces will fit right in these triangular shapes on the sides here. So let's go ahead and put those in. You want to make sure that you line them up so that this design actually fits together, because that way it's going to look much better when you put them on here. So this is going to line up about actually about 1/16 of an inch away from that center line and from the two edges. And then the same thing with the bottom piece. We're going to line that up on the bottom part again about 1/16 of an inch from that center fold and from each of the edges. And there you've got that side finished. Then your other piece, we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to line it up and make sure that those two pieces match, and then attach those exactly the same way. So it's going to be 1/16 of an inch away from that center fold and away from each of the edges. This is, as you can see, this one doesn't have the same sparkle as the other one. This was the original paper that I got. Or wait a minute, the other paper that I had was the original paper that I found in my stash, and I couldn't find any more, so I ordered this paper online, and it doesn't have the sparkle, but it still has the grays and the whites and the blacks in there, so I thought that would work pretty well. Okay, so now this is the inside. If you want, you can take a gray marker or whatever color you want and color in these little graduation hats. I'm not actually going to do that on this one. But then what you can do is take this piece, keeping in mind that this is the bottom. The part that says Congrats Grad is the bottom. So what you're going to do is close it up and flip it over so you're working on the bottom. The Congrats Grad is on this piece. You're going to put tape all the way around on the bottom, and actually, since this is maybe going to be getting a lot of use, I'm also going to add some on the inside. Why? Because I am always concerned that my cards are going to fall apart, so I probably am guilty of using more adhesive than I want. Okay, so here's the Congrats Grad, here's the adhesive on the other side of that. And we're going to just center that over that bottom black square. That looks pretty centered to me. And we're going to set that aside. Okay, now we're going to work on the front of the card. For the front of the card, again, we have another piece of 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 paper. Then we have this beautiful silver sparkly paper, and this piece is 4 inches by 4 inches. And we're going to center that on the black cardstock. Okay, then we have this piece that has all of these stars that I'm going to punch out. This is actually a Tim Holtz die that I found on a sale table somewhere. And I love it because I can punch out all these stars out of the cardstock. It is not really much larger than this 3 3/4 by 3 3/4 inch piece of paper. The die isn't. Okay, I think I got them all. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, and then we have all these black stars you could use for something. You could put them on the inside if you want for confetti. That would be fun. Okay, so I'm going to take my liquid glue for this, and I am going to get the goop off the tip of it first, and then I'm just going to add glue all around, making sure that I get the edges fairly well. And I'm just kind of putting it everywhere in there. Just a thin little splotches of glue everywhere, because I want to make sure that this is going to stay down. And it's probably going to take a little bit of pressure and a little bit of time before it sets up, but not too long. So glue, 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 glue. That was one of the first words my grandson said. I was so proud of him. Okay. Now we're just going to center that on the silver. Doesn't that look pretty? With all that silver coming through the stars. I just love that. Okay, and I'm actually going to flip that over and give it a good rub. I don't want to rub it too aggressively on the front because I don't want to mess with any of the stars on there. I don't want to mess with any of the points on there coming off. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now at this point, we can go ahead and put this onto the front of the card. So what we're going to do, and I bet you've already guessed this, is we're going to come back to this piece. Okay, here it is. It's opened up. Now it's closed. We're going to, on the front of it, add adhesive all the way around, and I'm also going to do a crisscross in the center just to make sure. Okay, and then at this point it doesn't matter what orientation you have because it's those stars are just kind of everywhere. It's kind of just a random star design. What I'm going to do is line it up with the bottom piece. Since you can't see the white, we covered it up, so we're just going to line it up all the way around with the bottom black piece. Okay, and now here's your card. Not bad, huh? Pretty easy. Okay, from here on, it's just a matter of, if you're going to do the graduation hat or graduation card, it's just a matter of assembling. And I'm actually going to make this one just slightly different than the original one. Here's the original one. But one of the ladies in my class did something that I thought was really kind of cute. And I think that this is probably the way this die was originally intended. She glued this onto the silver, which is what we originally did, but then instead of putting it on the bottom of the card, she glued it over the base of the hat, which made it stand out quite a bit more, I think. And I decided to give it a shot myself. So, oh my gosh, sticky stuff. Okay, so we're just going to line this up over the silver piece. And on this one, I have it here with the hat up here. On the one we're making now, I'm going to do it a little differently. So first of all, there's just a tiny little score line. Can't see it too well, but there is just, oh, can you see? Yeah, there it is. Okay, a little score line right there along the edge on both sides. So we're going to fold that back where that score line is. And this is just going to give it a little dimension when you put it on your card. Okay, I'm going to use liquid glue. Actually, no, I'm not. I have some tiny little score tape. It's 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to put that on there because that is really sticky stuff. And I haven't had it fail me yet. I use it to make boxes and everything. I mean, it's just so strong. And I have it in so many different widths. Okay, so this is the, well, before I do that though, I want to add some dimension to the inside. So I have these great little black foam dots. These are called Stampin' Dimensionals from Stampin' Up. And I love them because they're black. And if you're working with black paper, there's nothing more annoying than having something white stick out from under it that shouldn't be there. You know what? I'm going to put those back on there because I want to show you the... No, you can see the happy birthday. I'm going to go ahead and assemble it. What the heck? You can see I change my mind in midstream all the time when I'm working on my cards. That's why it takes me so long to design them sometimes. I just have too many ideas. Okay, now this is a little important. You want to open it again. Make sure that the bottom is down here. The bottom is actually on the bottom before you add this to the front of the card. Okay, so now that's the base of the hat. this is now, instead of having black on black, this time we're going to add this to the top of the hat. Okay, so for that, we just basically need to, I can use some little foam dots for that to attach it, and then that'll also make sure that these outer edges are going to stay in place. Okay, you can use, if you have just the white foam tape, that's going to be fine too, because it's not going to show through. As long as you keep it far enough away from the edge, it's not going to show through. Okay, so hats off to you. And there is our graduation cap. Then I have this little itty bitty silver piece of paper that I punched out a little circle in. And on the back of that, I have another black, I have a black mini dot, mini dimensional. And I'm going to put that right over that centerpiece. And then I'm going to take just a tiny little liquid glue, and I'm going to put it just right on the side of that, actually kind of on the foam tape. I don't know if you can even see that, but it's just a tiny little bit right there. And I'm going to attach this tassel. I found these tassels actually at Hobby Lobby, and I thought they were so cute. They were perfect for this card. And I'm going to just twist it around a little bit, kind of hold it in place, and then I'm going to put a glue dot right under the edge of the tassel. I'm going to kind of move it up here so it's not falling too far off the edge. I have glue dots right here. So I'm going to use my scissors and pull one off so I can position it exactly where I want it. And where I want it is right here at the edge. It's not on the hat, it's actually on the card under the hat, because I want this thick tassel to be attached to the card. Kind of holding this glue part in place here so that it doesn't come undone. And I think I'm going to put maybe another little bit of glue right here to hold this in place. Oops, a little more glue than I wanted, but that's okay. I'm using a glue that doesn't dry shiny, it dries matte, so that shouldn't show at all. Okay, and this is the card. Hats off to you. Congrats, grad. And that's it. And now I'm going to show you, if you wanted to do the alternate version, the happy birthday, I'm going to show you how I assembled the happy birthday circle. Because it's just not too bad, but it's just a little bit tricky. Okay, so now get some of this stuff out of the way. Find my pin to put back in my glue. There we go. Okay, so this piece for the circle, and I have a different greeting on the inside of this one also. I have not assembled it, but on the kits that I made, I actually included, get this front out of the way. Okay, I actually included some silver balloons. So those silver balloons can go up here just to kind of celebrate happy birthday. They can go anywhere. Okay, and then again, I have these pieces. This one says, let's celebrate. And again, I have these pieces of paper that are cut to fit into these sections, just the same as I did on the graduation card. So I'm going to kind of fit that stuff back in there because that's going to go together exactly the same way as the graduation card. It's just a different wording inside of it. And I'm not going to assemble this again either because you've already seen how to do that as well. So all I'm going to put together for the happy birthday card is the happy birthday. So you can see how I did that. Because the die itself cuts out, when it cuts out the A, it cuts out the entire A. I mean, it doesn't leave that circle in there. You know, actually, somebody gave me another idea how to do this. I'm going to try a different thing for this video because I think it might actually work better than how I did it. But for this, I'm adding liquid glue on the bottom of this silver circle right at the edge, because there is just a very small area that overlaps the circle that's under it. Why? Well, let's not ask. If I had been smart, I would have just cut this big circle, but no, that's too smart for me. Instead, I felt the need to cut out the center of it. Oh, actually, that's not true. That was part of the die. I didn't do it on purpose. That was part of the die. Okay, so this piece is just lined up. You can kind of see where the glue is around there. And I'm just pressing down to make sure it's making a nice, good contact there. Okay, so now we have this circle. What I originally did is I punched out all these letters, and then I ended up having to put the middles of the letters, these pieces, the middles of the A's, the P's, the D, the B, I ended up having to put those back in. But you know, somebody gave me a really good idea that I'm going to try now. What she did, or what she suggested, was actually putting the glue, I don't know if you can see that very well, but I'm going to put glue in the middle of the P, the piece that needs to stay there, for each of those letters, the ones, the A, the P, the D, the B. I'm just putting the glue right there in the center for each of them. And then not the outer edges. I'm not putting it on. Okay, that's not bad. You can see there what I've done. I'm not putting it on the letters themselves. I'm just putting it on those center pieces that need to stay in there to make it look like a B and a P and an A and a D. Then I'm going to put glue all around the letters, but not on the letters, because we're going to then go back and pull the letters off. Or, yeah, pull the letters off. Ooh, I love to make little swirls with my glue. It's so much fun. And I'm probably going to have excess glue, but you know what? I'd rather have too much than not enough. As long as it doesn't seep out, we're good. Okay, I think that's enough. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so now we're going to line this up centered. There's just a tiny little scallop all the way around the edge there. Now we're going to test this and see if it worked. I had not actually tried this before, so we're going to be testing this together. Take the edge of my scissors and pull up these letters and see. Oh, it's looking good so far. And I'm kind of holding down that part of the A that needs to stick in there. Now it's coming back up, even though there was glue under it. But you know what? I can hold it down with my scissors. There we go. It is working. I like this. This is much easier than having to go back and figure out how to center it in there. Look at that. Well, it's not ideal, but I do think that it's working better than it did when I had to go back in and figure out where those pieces went. That's what I need to do, is just hold that piece down when I pull up the rest of it. We're almost there. Maybe halfway. This is working actually pretty good. I'm kind of happy with this. Yep, there we go. That glue isn't sticking real well for those. I may have left it set too long. Maybe I should have put the glue behind those pieces after I put the rest of the glue on. And then maybe they would hold a little better. Okay, let's see if that'll hold down. Now the bottom piece is coming out. But you get the general idea. I can go back and add more glue on those later. But then I had some stars. I put some stars in there, and I wanted to put a little bit of glitz on there to go along with the other stars behind it, because this looks kind of plain if you just put it on there without anything else on it. To me, it looked just a little bit plain, so I decided to add a few stars. So I just punched these with a couple of my star punches out of my stash, out of that same paper that I used for the back. And then I just glued this one down. The front of the paper, the shiny part of that silver paper, the glue is a little bit stubborn about holding to that, so you do have to hold it down for a few seconds. The back of it is just plain paper. It's just plain cardstock, so it holds just fine. So I'm just going to put a little glue there and add a little star here. And then I think I'll put the big star here. And then I actually have already added a little foam dot to the back of this other small star. And I just popped it up kind of right there. And then that is, I'm going to put some glue under there now, because if I don't, I'm going to lose those two pieces forever and always. And this card will never have a good B unless I go punch out another one somewhere. Okay, so glue, glue. Back to the old way of doing this. This is going to go here. And this is going to go here. There we go. That's the piece that goes on the front of the happy birthday card. And this I popped up too. I put foam tape on the back of it. And not only does it pop it up off the card a little bit and give it some dimension, but it also helps to hold these two pieces together, because that really is a very thin margin that's holding that black piece to the silver piece on the back. So this foam tape serves both purposes. It's kind of holding it together and it's popping it up. And I'm not going to remove this backing yet because I'll go ahead and assemble the rest of the card first, and then I'll put this on. There you go. That's what I did on the back, and then I added another piece in the center because I don't know what it is, but when you put something in an envelope and send it through the mail, that center part kind of wants to suck itself right down and flatten out. Okay, so there it is. That's the piece for the happy birthday. And that's it for my tutorial. Several different versions of this card. Oh, I have all kinds of junk over here now too, to add to my little display of cards. And we have several different versions of this card. And then we just have, two versions of this card. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that it was helpful for those of you who have kits that you need to assemble. And Women's Connection is now over until the fall. So I will not be doing classes there over the summer. But I do have one more tutorial that I'll be putting on here, and that's for the week 5 class that we did on May 13th. So you can be watching for that to pop up here very soon. Thank you so much for watching.